case up a little bit. So talking a little bit about Brian. Brian was a medical student at Ohio State University. I've never been to Ohio, but I know that university is a very popular university. He was studying to become a doctor. He was a medical student. And as a background information, he grew up in Pickerington, Ohio, which is a suburb of Columbus. If anybody knows if I said that right, please let me know. I've never been to Ohio. He was the oldest of two sons to Randy and Renee Shaffer. He graduated from a local high school in 1997, and he went to the Ohio State University, as I stated, for his undergraduate work. 6 years later, he graduated with a degree in microbiology. So Brian Shaffer was a very smart man, smart boy, smart man. To be able to go to school for that, I think is pretty great. He then began his studies at the OSU College of Medicine in 2004, and unfortunately, during his second year at that college studying, his mother died of a disease. The disease is called myelodysplasia. I'm not quite for sure what that is. Oh, here it is. It's a group of cancers in which immature blood cells in the bone marrow do not mature. So, again, with a lot of cancers, there are no symptoms early, and then the later symptoms, I guess it's when it kind of gets more intense, but I won't pretend to know anything about that. Of course, I'm not a doctor. Brian and his friend, William Florence, they actually went bar hopping, and they went to several other drinking places, and they went working their way through this place called the Arena District. The Arena District area. At each stop, the two had one shot each of hard liquor, according to his friend. So they were there from 9 p.m. So now, fast forward to 12 midnight. Brian and Florence, his friend, meet up with this woman named Meredith Reed, who was a friend of Florence's in the short north. So Meredith gave them a ride back to the Ugly Tuna. So they went to the Ugly Tuna at 9 p.m., went bar hopping, and then this girl Meredith had drove them back to the Ugly Tuna where they had started the night, and she joined them for the last round. While they all were there, Brian had left. And I'm not looking at the source, but I've done a lot of research on Brian's case, and just from own curiosity and wanting to understand it a little bit more. And there were images of Brian walking out of the Ugly Tuna and talking to some girls, and then he seemingly walks back in. But I don't know that the camera really fully shows him walking all the way in, or if it's just assumed that he's going to walk all the way back in. So I guess while he's out there, Florence and Meredith they're still at the Ugly Tuna, and they said that they tried to find Brian and they repeatedly called him, but they didn't hear a response, so they didn't get a response, so they assumed, I assumed that he went home, that he just went home. They left the bar at 2 in the morning. When they didn't see him, like I said, they just assumed that he went home to his apartment. His girlfriend, Wagner, and Brian's father both tried to call him later in the weekend, but he did not answer. And unfortunately, on that Monday morning, he actually missed the flight to Miami, where they had scheduled. So he was then reported missing. So what's really sad about this case is that a whole weekend went by without anybody realizing that Brian was not okay and was not responding, because they waited until Monday morning when he very clearly missed a flight. I mean, this might have been normal for Brian, where he didn't always talk to everybody every day, but it's just a shame because that window now, that really important window, is now, that's important in the investigation. I mean, you missed a couple of days. So they reported him missing, and the police began their search where they knew that he was at. He was at the Ugly Tuna, the bar where he had last been seen. The bar had installed security cameras, and there were some in the surrounding areas. It showed them going up an escalator at 1:15 in the morning. He was actually seen outside at 1:55 a.m., which is 5 minutes before the bar closes, so that's very interesting. He was talking to 2 women. He said goodbye. Then he moved off camera in the direction of the bar, apparently to re-enter, but the camera did not record him leaving afterwards when the Ugly Tuna Saloon closed, and that was the last time that he was seen. The investigators, they're saying he could have changed his clothes, and left and had his head down. That's why they couldn't recognize him. he